It's probably old.
Yeah, rugby.
I can't remember what Steve. Oh no, person one.
I think it was person one, not old.
Yeah,
And then Steve was
old.
rugby.
Steve before.
We should have said who was saying what.
You're introducing yourself first, and I'm second.
Hello, I'm Ross.
And I'm Chris, and we are Play It By Ear Drama Company. For me, following Jesus wholeheartedly is all about the word all. You've got to give him your all. It's not enough to do it on a Sunday morning or with a group of friends. Actually, it's meant to be your whole life. And then the other word I kind of connect with that word all is joy. Because the things I give my all to, my hobbies, family, friends, they're also the things that give me most joy. So they might not always be the easiest things, but the things that mean the most to me. And it's the same with following Jesus. Actually, when I'm wholehearted in that, when I'm giving my all, that gives me joy. Because I know that I know God and God knows me.
On top of what Chris said, living wholeheartedly for Jesus for me is also about how we use our gifts and talents. How actually Play It By Ear has taught us those gifts of acting, writing, etc. are all gifts we haven't been given by accident, but we've been given them to use for a purpose, to tell people all about God's story. And so often the temptation, for me at least, is to use it for my glory, to show people how brilliant I am, or at least how brilliant I think I am. Whereas actually the whole purpose of these gifts and talents is to serve people, to serve the church, to serve Jesus. And so actually it's to lay down these gifts and talents and not show people how brilliant I think I am, but to try and show people how brilliant God is.
We started this work about 12 years ago, back when we were fresh-faced students. I had some hair, and we just began writing some scripts and doing some drama, and it was all about getting people to laugh, to enjoy themselves, but also to see the Bible in a fresh way. And that's always been our passion, to use creativity and storytelling to invite people to meet with God. And in many ways, Play It By Ear is just a hobby that's got wildly out of control. I mean, that to me is a good thing, because it would suggest that God's at work, because he's taken us in directions and we've done stuff which I can never imagine.
In terms of seeing our initial vision grow, to be honest, that wouldn't be too difficult, because I don't know if we had much of an initial vision. I don't know if we ever really allowed ourselves to dream that God would make this into a full-time drama ministry. To us, it seemed impossible. And yet, the more we've worked, the more we've done, the more we've thrown ourselves into it, the more God has shown us the potential of what we're doing. The more people seem to respond and want to get involved in how this Play It By Ear thing works. I suppose a really good example of that is at the start we performed a couple of times a year, here, there, and mostly around Northern Ireland. But more recently then, we go to England on a fairly regular basis. We've toured around Europe a bit. It's grown beyond our imaginations.
So for us, I guess the overflow of following Jesus is all about joy. And maybe I can best describe that through a story. So once we were doing a service, and at the end of the service, an old lady came over to us, and she had a big smile on her face, and she said, "Boys, that was magnificent. It was like having my two sons back home." And that's kind of our vibe. We aren't cool, we aren't smooth, we'll usually make a mistake or two, but we're about making people feel part of a family, to feel included, to feel like actually we want them to be there. So much of Jesus' ministry was about drawing people in from the edges, making them understand there was room in God's family for them. And I guess for us, the way we do that is through humour. We want people to be there, and whether they know the Bible inside or out, or whether they've never opened it up, they actually feel included, that it feels accessible for them, that they feel actually, do you know what, I feel comfortable here. And as they feel comfortable, actually God is at work and the Holy Spirit's at work. And so all we're trying to do is make a place where people feel a little bit at home. The longer we've done Play It By Ear, probably the more committed we've come to becoming funny and being playful and being silly. Because in a serious world full of serious problems, this invitation to be playful is actually an invitation to people to relax, to enjoy themselves, and to hear God's truths.
In terms of transformation, we're perhaps in a slightly different position to other missions in that we don't spend a lot of time in one place. We're there for an hour and then we leave. Every now and again, though, we do receive stories from when we've been out and about and people have been impacted by what we've done. One such example was last summer, and we were doing a family service and we were telling a story which we've told hundreds of times. And so when we left, we kind of thought, well, that was that. We've done it before, we'll do it again. Didn't really think much more of it. And yet that night we received a message on our Facebook page. And during the story, we'd had a volunteer up to help us tell the story. And the message was from his mum. And the boy, he must have been sort of 7 or 8. And his mum had just sent through this incredibly heartfelt message about how her son had, over the past few months, he'd been diagnosed with ADHD, had a really difficult time in school, hardly had any friends, he'd been bullied. And yet telling that story on stage with us had transformed things for them. It had brought incredible healing. It turns out the story had, in many crazy ways, reflected this boy's life, down to the detail of him having just this one friend who really gets him. And so this message that she sent, it was so heartfelt. She told us how it healed their relationships with each other, with the church, with God. And actually it reminded me that we don't exist just to entertain people, but we exist to see people's lives transformed. We exist so that God is there to weave his story into their stories. Without the financial support of the Methodist Church and Home Mission, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today. It was 6 years ago that Chris was able to come on board full-time and join me because of a Home Mission grant. And so we're really thankful for everything they've done, because as I say, Play It By Ear wouldn't exist without them.
If you think God's calling you, do something. Don't wait until you've got it all figured out. Find someone, get them to pray for you, and then see what God has in store.